everybody, John here, Big Rig Outdoors. Got another archery video for you. Today we're going to actually compare the Samick Sage with the Mandarin Duck Black Hunter as to which one is going to be better suited for beginners. Because yesterday I uploaded a video, or last night it finally uploaded due to some technical issues. And I woke up this morning to several comments of people thinking that the Black Hunter is actually the better choice. And your opinion is validated. It's a great bow for beginners. What I was saying in the previous video about the Samick Sage being the better choice for a beginner is because it allows for options. It allows for different disciplines. Whereas the Black Hunter here, now granted I've got the longbow limbs on here right now. I don't have the recurve limbs for it at the moment. This one here is a very small riser, a very small grip. I think this riser is 11 inches. No, it has to be 13. I think these are 13-inch risers. The riser is the portion that you grip, where the limbs bolt on. This is your riser. Now with the Black Hunter here, there are no mounting locations for any accessories, which is the reason why I think the Samick Sage is actually the better bow for a beginner. From my experience, a lot of people get into traditional archery through bow fishing. So the Samick Sage here, it allows for accessories to be mounted to it. For instance, we have the stabilizer or bow fishing reel mount here, and we also have the riser mount here for sights or other bow fishing reels, like I think it's AWS. They're riser mounted, not the grip mount. Also too, the Samick Sage has other options for quiver mounts. So for most beginners, most of them are going to buy the bow and the arrows before they order a quiver. So a lot of people don't understand, especially people that are just getting into the sport of traditional archery. They don't understand that there are certain accessories for specific bows. So for instance, my hunting bow here. So today I've actually got my bow and my wife's bow out here. This one here, I've got limb mounted quivers on them, and I've got the inserts to utilize the smaller diameter carbon shafts. Something else most people don't think about is that there are specific quivers for certain size arrows. So for instance, and this goes back to why I think the Samick Sage is the better option. Most people are going to get the bow and they're going to go, well, now how do I carry my arrows? For those that don't want to utilize a back quiver or a hip quiver, they're going to start looking at options for bow mounted, be it limb or riser mounted quivers. The limb mounted quivers can be a bit of a pain, especially if you're like me, and when I get up in a tree stand, there are days where I just don't want a quiver on my bow. I don't want the extra weight. I don't want the extra bulk taking up room, especially if I'm hunting out of a really confined stand or out of a hunting blind. I don't want these feathers making noise when I pick that bow up and position myself to take a shot at a deer, pig, or whatever. So having a detachable quiver becomes a huge plus. Now this is just a standard quickie, compound riser mounted quiver, and it bolts right on, right like so. Plenty of room for your hand. If you wanted to, you could take the back arrows off, whatever you wanted to do, and have plenty of room. Whereas with a limb mounted quiver like this, you don't have that option to just pop it off just whenever you want, unless you got the strap on, and those are a whole nother pain to get on and off, especially during cold weather. I do most of my traditional archery hunting in the late season. When I was living in Indiana, late season temperatures could get down to -10, -15 degrees with the wind chill. So that rubber becomes very stiff on the strap-on style. So therefore, again, bolt-on is better. This is based upon beginners, guys. I've got, several bows, several that you guys haven't seen. I've actually got 2 more coming in as of today that I'm going to be reviewing later on. But anyways, so with the Black Hunter, yes, it is a fabulous bow. It is lighter than the Samick Sage, but you're limited to your options for beginners. Now, those of us that have been doing this for several years, or 30 years, 30 years of shooting traditional archery. Time flies when you're having fun. But anyways, so that's just a few things that stand out as a issue for beginners when they're choosing their first traditional bow. The other issue with the Black Hunter here is the shelf. Okay, the shelf on the Black Hunter is not it's not cut as deep as it is with the Samick Sage. That's why the Sage is so much heavier, because they really had to beef up the riser, because it is cut past center, kind of slightly like what you would see with a compound, or one of the older, one of the bows that I had was a black bear compound, which could be shot off the shelf. So because this is only cut to center, your arrow still sits in slight angle, so therefore you have to have more arrow tuning, which is another issue. So you'll notice, I think some of the shooting footage I shot earlier will show it, of the arrow really kicking around, and that's because I wasn't using the proper spined. Well, I was using the right spined arrow, just not the right length. A bow like this requires a lot more tuning versus the Samick Sage, because it is cut past center, so it allows your arrow to get closer to the center of the string and bow itself, so it's going to come off straighter. Therefore, you don't need to tune it as much. You can get away with just going with the right spined arrow, cut to a generic length, and then go with larger feathers. So like I shoot 5-inch, I've just always shot 5-inch feathers. I think they look better. But these 5-inch feathers, they stabilize the arrow better and faster. So therefore, again, allowing you to you can kind of cheat a little bit. That's what we'll call it cheating. So, oops, get off my feathers there. So those are some of the issues and differences between a bow like the Samick Sage and its many copies, just like with the Black Hunter and its many copies. They all use basically the same riser. Most of them, the only difference between the different models or different brands is the bolts. This one here Hold on. Alright, sorry about that, guys. We had a small technical issue. I forgot to delete previous footage from the memory card, so we ran out of space. But anyways, I know I've talked a lot of bad about the Black Hunter today, and again, it's not a bad bow, but for a beginner it requires a lot more work to get it to shoot really well. But that's also too, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Oh, we got a car coming through. You know, for the guy who just wants to go out in his backyard, no, you don't need to go and, you know, tune the arrows just right to get them to shoot perfect out of the bow. You know, or getting the right spine arrow and going with a reasonable length will take care of 99% of the problems, or flight issues that you could run into. And throw a 5-inch set of feathers on there, and you're good. You'll be able to hit the target pretty consistently. But if you want to go out and hunt with it, that's where it becomes far more important to have everything tuned just right. Because if that arrow is kicking around really hard when it hits that animal, especially if you hit the shoulder or something, you could get deflection. And that arrow may go traveling straight at the deer, hit that shoulder bone, and then kick down, and all you do is just leave a big gash down that deer's side. I've had it happen. I speak from experience on this. And now you've got a wounded animal just running around out there with this big gaping cut in its side. I've seen it. I've done it. It made me feel like crap. Granted, I was able to harvest that animal a few days later. But, you know, as hunters, especially those of us that have gotten into the traditional stuff and kind of going back to the old ways of doing things, we try to make it as clean of a kill as possible. It truly hurts my heart when I just wound an animal. Yes, it happens. We don't want it to, but it's inevitable. Everybody will make a mistake at some point. Nobody is perfect. So do everything you can on your end prior to that encounter or that situation to make certain that things, even if there is a slight error, that it's still an ethical shot, ethical kill. But that's just my personal feelings on the matter. But again, the bow is not bad. The Black Hunter is still a great bow. It just, in my opinion, it doesn't offer the options that most beginners are going to want. You know, some people may get into Olympic style traditional archery, where they're using a recurve with sights and an arrow rest. You can't do that with the Black Hunter. I mean, sure, yeah, you could go and get it drilled, I guess, but I don't think that the structural integrity would be strong enough to withstand having a hole drilled through the center of the riser, being how thin this riser is to begin with. But that's just my 2 cents on why the Samick Sage and the other bows like it are a better fit for a beginner. They're not the best for a beginner, but they offer more options for beginners. You know, like I said, in order to use this for bow fishing, the Black Hunter here, you've got to get the adapter. It's a strap-on adapter that allows you to mount the bow fishing reel or the old drum on the front. I still use one of them myself, and I just ordered another adapter. Now the other problem is the adapters that are available. Because of where your hand goes, you can't use the small adapter or the larger adapter that straps on here in the front like I would use on my old Mountain Mesa. So that means that you have to get the one that mounts onto the sight window. So now you got stuff that's going to be in the way here. The Black Hunter has a very narrow sight window here. So again, you have an issue there. That's why I say that the Samick Sage and the bows like it are a better option for beginners. Unless you wanted to go with like an aluminum riser, like the Hoyt Centauri, I think that's the model, or the old Hoyt Buffalo, or the PSC Kingfisher. That's another one. It's supposed to be a dedicated bow fishing bow, but you can use it for hunting. I did for a long time. Took many a rabbit and squirrel with it. I never got the opportunity to use it for a deer because I was usually carrying my compound or one of my other traditional bows, because it was so heavy, and that aluminum riser gets really cold on the hands. So I preferred to use wood, something that's going to warm up with my hands a little bit better, stuff like that. Also too, the grip was a little skinny, and kind of became difficult to hold on to, because I pulled the plastic grip off because it rattled, it made noise, because with that bow there was a lot of hand shock. But it had the stabilizer adapter here and the ability to have a riser mounted quiver, sights, whatever you wanted on it. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents on why the Black Hunter is not as good for a beginner as the Samick Sage and its copies. The Black Hunter, I would say, is for somebody that's a little more seasoned with traditional archery, or somebody's just looking for that, more fancy, we'll say, looking bow. But anyways, that's my 2 cents on all that, guys. I know I've rambled. I'm still trying to get back to talking to the camera. But I will be having another video coming out next week. I promise I will have one next week. Well, let me rephrase. I should have one out next week, depending on if these new bows arrive. Everything's kind of riding on those. If they arrive on time, I'll be doing a full setup video, talking about putting a string on, taking your first shots, how to aim, where to tie your knock point in on. If you wanted to use a tie-in, that's just what I use. Or if you wanted to go with the old brass crimp-on knock points, things like that. I'll be doing the entire setup video. And then the following week, I will go into more advanced shooting, getting better distance, things like that. And we'll continue on all the way up to Christmas. We should get into arrow building, putting fletchings on, things like that, along with, cutting them down, doing tuning your arrows to your bow, all that good stuff over the next 3 weeks. I'll be filming those because I only get one full day to film. I'm usually sleeping my first day off because I get home at between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning. So I'm usually quite tired after driving all the way home from BFE, out in the middle of Tennessee or Virginia. They're 6.5 to 8.5 hour drives if I don't have to go all the way to North Carolina before I come home. So anyways, that's the game plan for between now and Christmas. So sit tight, and hopefully everybody will learn something and get a few new people into traditional archery. But tight lines, and we'll catch you all next time.